G'day, I'm Andrew from Berrima Diesel Service. Just going to talk about the Provent catch cans. We've been fitting them for years and years here. We get loads of questions on our Facebook and on email about catch cans and what should I do and what size in particular, because people get really confused about the size. So here's our 101 on it. If we have a look at the three different catch cans from the German-made Provent system. It's made by Mann-Hummel over in Germany. We've got the Provent 200, we've got the Provent 150, we've got the smaller Provent 100. If we take a bit of a look at the filters as well, we can see three different size filters, but not really so much. If we actually look at the Provent 200 and the Provent 150 filter, they're identical. They just have a slightly different makeup in the housing because these weren't made to go into four-wheel drives. They were designed for all sorts of other stationary engine, marine, truck applications, for bolting onto truck engines, etc. So in our applications, we fit them with brackets and things, and there are different shapes and sizes. But whether you're running the 200 or the 150, you can see they are virtually the same. The reason this is a bit longer is so you can get the filter out. You've got a little hand clip on top. Whereas with the 150, you twist the top and you can pull the filter out. But if we have a look at the little tiny 100, it is only a very small filter. And if we compare them here, it's quite dramatic. It might be nearly about half the size. Now, if you've got no room in your engine bay, yes, you can get away with fitting a little Provent 100 or these little smaller ones. But you've got to remember they are very, very small and they would need regular servicing and probably much earlier filter changing. So on most of our kits, unless it's a real custom install where we've got no room, we'll be using the 200 or the 150. As you can see again, same filter size, capacity and everything's great. But just remember with the catch cans, the oil holding capacity is not in the catch can. They're not made to hold oil. It's in the drain tube. So make sure you have a nice long drain tube so you don't end up with it overfilling. And then of course, oil coming back out the outlet. And then of course you've got oil back in through your inlet again. So the drain tube is very, very important. One of the other main questions we get asked as well is, as always, which one should we be fitting, the 200 or the 150 or whatever. Either of those two, the 200 or the 150, are fine. The 150 is made for bolting onto the side of an engine application, so it's not just as easy as the 200 with an inlet and an outlet. So in our kits where we have the 150, like this Ford Ranger we're fitting today, it's got a special bracket that butts up against here, and then it's got a stainless outlet on there. So it is quite specific, but again, it suits an application, a little bit more compact housing, so it can fit into those little tighter areas. The 100, well, obviously, if you're really stuck for room, you could fit this little thing anywhere you wanted to, but you must remember a long drain tube, and it's a very small filter. It would need regularly draining, in particularly probably changing at half the interval of what you would with the big ones, given it looks about half the size of the element. How often should you change the elements? Well, it's not filtering out carbon, it's not filtering out dirty fuel and dirty air like air filters and fuel filters are. It's separating oil vapor. So the rule of thumb is usually around that sort of 30 to 40,000 K mark, put in a new filter element. Probably do it earlier again if you've got that little tiny 100. But the mainstream one, 30 to 40,000 is a bit of a rule of thumb. They will get oil soaked, so they will look like they're oily, but that doesn't mean they had it. And of course they'll get black because they're filtering black diesel oil, the steamy part of it, which is basically being distilled out because it's steam. So of course it will always look black, but as a rule of thumb, they say about every 30, 40,000 Ks to change them. Now, one thing that we've had people that come up with horror stories, and this really changes the whole way people think about catch cans, are blown seals in engines, blown turbos and everything. Two current ones that have been asking for help on our Facebook through PM messages have been people that have fitted the 200 and put my life on it. They have hooked it up back to front. The inlet is in the top, the outlet is in the bottom. It has a sort of a one-way valve, you can nearly say, down the bottom, a very soft rubbery valve in there that's probably not really needed in our applications for this type of use, unlike you would do with noisy trucks like the one just going past and stationary engines, and as well as long as it's hooked up correctly. But if you hook it up the wrong way, that valve could shut, and when it does, you'll build up pressure, you'll blow out seals, you'll do all sorts of mischief. In this one case, they had a couple of turbos changed and everything, and more than likely could have been the installation of that being done the wrong way. We've seen it before, we've done testing on it, and most certainly when you do testing on it, you hook it up the wrong way, once things warm up, that will shut, and then you'll build up excessive pressure, and that of course will cause disasters. So horror stories, I always usually say there's a good reason behind them, and horror stories around the Provent 200s, as far as blowing seals out, I've seen a couple of them and they've all related to being hooked up the wrong way. So guys, they've got arrows on them, make sure they're hooked up correct for the application. That's about it for the 101 on the catch cans today. You can keep watching for more of these videos on our Facebook, look us up at YouTube, or of course get more technical info at berrimadiesel.com.